So, which is better, a MacBook or a ThinkPad? Let's compare. So I'm still working on the full review for this free Lenovo ThinkPad that I got, along with a bunch of other ones from an office that was getting rid of them. You can see my video on that. I think it's over there. Yeah. But I've been using this laptop for about a week and a half now, and I have to say I really like it. So this laptop is a Lenovo T440s, and it is a 14-inch business Ultrabook. It's actually remarkably similar to the 2013 13-inch Retina MacBook Pro that I've been looking at and made a couple of videos on. So I figured in this video we will compare them to see where each one has benefits. So I came up with a list of criteria from price to performance to build quality to features that will hopefully give us a very good idea of where each of these devices excels. Now, I'll preface before I start that this is not meant to tell you which one you should buy. I'm not going to say you need to go buy a ThinkPad right now and never buy a MacBook, because it's really up to personal preference. So I'll be giving my personal pick for which one wins each category, but that's not to say that I'm 100% right or that everything that I'm saying is dead fact. These are my opinions, and this is how I think each computer stacks up.
That's my opinion!
So, without any further ado, let's jump into the comparison. So, we'll start with price, and the MacBook Pro in its base configuration can usually be had for around $500 or $550. The ThinkPad, on the other hand, in a fully spec'd out version can be had for $350 to $400. So the ThinkPad easily wins this test. So next up is processor. The MacBook Pro has a Core i5-4285U, while the ThinkPad has a Core i7-4600U. Interestingly enough though, the performance for both of these chips is almost identical. I ran Cinebench on both of these devices. The MacBook scored 256, the ThinkPad scored 257. There may be other small differences, but the fact is no one is really going to notice a difference in performance for the processor, so we're just calling it a tie. So next up is the RAM configuration. Now I say configuration because these computers don't handle the RAM in the same way. So the MacBook that I have is the base model late 2013, so it has standard as 4 GB of non-upgradable soldered on RAM. This is not ideal. On the other hand, the ThinkPad handles RAM in a more interesting way. There are 4 GB of RAM that are soldered onto the motherboard, non-upgradable, but it does feature one expansion slot that can handle up to 8 GB of 1600 MHz DDR3 RAM. Now, this means that the maximum amount of RAM you can put in this machine is 12 GB, where the MacBook can have up to 16, but the MacBook had to have been configured when it was purchased with 16, so the ThinkPad wins this test because it can be upgraded when you buy it and for less money. It is worth noting that both computers use DDR3 1600 MHz RAM. So next up is storage, and the MacBook has a base configuration of 128 GB solid state drive, whereas the ThinkPad can be upgraded because it has a normal 2.5-inch hard drive bay. So the ThinkPad wins for upgradability. Now, the SSDs in the MacBook are faster than normal SATA SSDs, but they are proprietary and very expensive, so while they can be upgraded, it's not cost effective to do so. So for this reason, the ThinkPad wins the storage test. Next up is graphics. So both of these machines are using integrated graphics, but the ThinkPad has Intel HD Graphics 4400, where the MacBook has Intel Iris graphics. In my experience, Intel Iris graphics are pretty noticeably better than the Intel HD graphics that you get on down-market processors, so I'm going to give this one to the MacBook, but take it with a grain of salt because it's not that important for most people. Going hand in hand with the graphics are the display, and part of the reason that the MacBook has Iris graphics instead of HD graphics is because the Retina display has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, which is a really great resolution. The ThinkPad, on the other hand, has a 1080p display, which is perfectly fine, but it is a lower resolution panel than the MacBook. Both of these displays have fantastic color accuracy and viewing angles and sharpness and are just really great displays, but I'm going to give this one to the MacBook because the Retina display is noticeably crisper than the 1080p panel on the ThinkPad. So interestingly enough, while I'm going to keep my point on the MacBook, you can configure the ThinkPad with a touchscreen. This might cost a little more and they're a little bit harder to find, but for some people that might be a deal breaker for the MacBook because that is not available on any MacBook. So the ThinkPad is available with a touchscreen. Alright, so next up is the keyboard, and this one is very tough because both of these are fantastic keyboards. As far as which one I prefer to type on, I'm more used to typing on the MacBook keyboard, so I'm more familiar with the layout and the shape of the keys because I've been using MacBook keyboards for pretty much a decade at this point. But the ThinkPad has a great keyboard. The only thing that I don't like is the spacebar is actually convex instead of concave like most of the other keys, so it just kind of feels a little weird, but that might just be me. Now, as far as the key feels, I do think the ThinkPad has better key travel and better key responsiveness, as well as having a spill-resistant keyboard, which the MacBook does not have, so I'm going to give this point to the ThinkPad. So, next up is the Trackpad, and this is another challenging one because both of these have the best trackpads in the business. MacBook trackpads are and have been for quite some time some of the best trackpads out there, but the ThinkPad touchpads are really, really good. In fact, I would go as far as to say that the ThinkPad trackpads are the best of any PC maker out there, at least that I've tried. The ThinkPad has really fantastic tactile feedback with a very long trackpad travel, so you get very satisfying key presses, but the MacBook has many more gestures and the tracking is a lot smoother, so I'm going to give this point to the MacBook, but keep in mind that the ThinkPad is still fantastic. Alright, so next up is battery, and I've split this into two categories because I think each of these devices wins in each of those categories. The first is battery life. So this one goes to the MacBook. It has 9 hours of battery life, and my machine is almost 5 years old. It has over 300 cycles on the battery. So battery life is a shoo-in at 9 hours, and it's just fantastic. The next category, also with battery, is the battery configuration, because the MacBook has a steadfastly non-upgradable battery. Unless you have a ton of time and like an ice pick to pull the battery that is glued to the top case out of here, or are made of money and can replace the top case, your battery is not getting upgraded. The ThinkPad handles it a lot better because it has an internal battery, which is admittedly quite small, but it also has space for hot swappable external batteries. So this dual battery setup is really great because what it means is if your main battery dies, you can swap it out without turning off the machine. This is a really cool feature and one that I think should be on every PC out there, especially ones that have replaceable batteries at the back, so that point goes to the ThinkPad. Next up is design and build quality, and this one I'm gonna have to give to the MacBook because it's an all aluminum and glass design. It's a lot cleaner and thinner than the ThinkPad. This is not in any way meant to indict the ThinkPad, which I think has really great build quality and design, but it's not quite as clean, and its plastic construction instead of aluminum do hold it back, so I am going to give this point to the MacBook. And the last quality is unique features. So this category is for kind of miscellaneous things that I prefer across each laptop. So for starters, the MacBook has HDMI, which you won't find on the ThinkPad. The MacBook also has MagSafe, which I prefer to most other chargers, even USB-C on the new MacBooks, to be honest. But the ThinkPad does have an available touchscreen, and it also has a standard fingerprint reader, which works flawlessly. So I'm going to give the unique features to the ThinkPad. Now you may have noticed something. We've got a tied score. And this was not intentional. I came up with these categories and scored each one and then tallied it up, and we've tied. I actually think that this speaks a lot to how good both of these devices are, because if I'm honest, I would not be able to tell you which one I prefer. I think they're both fantastic devices. Depending on what you're looking for, each one might have its advantages. For example, if you need a touchscreen, the ThinkPad's got your back. If you need macOS, the MacBook's gotcha. If you need an attractive aluminum design, MacBook has your back. If you need a fingerprint scanner or hot swappable batteries, the ThinkPad has you covered. Basically, you can go back and forth on either one, so I'm not going to render a verdict here over which one I think is the superior laptop because I think they're both equally incredible devices. So as I said, I'm not here to make your mind up as to which one of these two you should buy. I'm just here to give my opinion on the strong and weak points of both of these devices. So with that being said, make sure to follow me on Twitter at LukeMiani. Don't forget to join my subreddit. The link is in the description below. And as usual, make sure that you leave a comment down below which one of these laptops you prefer. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.